we're live. I don't capture students' faces on Swivel, so don't worry. Your identity is safe. Your superheroes will remain anonymous. All right. So today we are talking about reviewing translation of nouns with each case. So some of this is a review, and in a way we're trying to bring it all together in a pretty succinct way. So let's go ahead and list all of the cases that you know and love from your Latin 1 experience. We'll start with nominative, then we have genitive, dative, accusative, and of course the ablative. So let's start filling in the blanks here. What do we use nominative case nouns for? What does a nominative case noun, what's its role in the sentence? Yeah.
Subject.
Good. So a nominative noun would be the subject of the sentence. Indeed, it's actually the subject of the verb. You want to think about it as this? It's the doer in a verb. All right, what's the genitive for? Parker.
Possessive.
Yes, yes, the genitive case shows possession. Just to clarify, the genitive case shows you who the owner is. Who the owner or who the possessor is, not the thing that's owned. So if we're talking about Henry's pen, Henry's or Henry is the genitive case. The pen is neither here nor there. It doesn't matter for us. Okay, what about the dative case? What do we know about the dative case?
It's the indirect object.
Good job, Caroline. Indirect object. With what two English words do we usually associate the dative case?
2 or 4.
2 or 4, exactly. Okay, what about the accusative case? What role does the accusative case have for us? Caroline?
The direct object.
Excellent. It's the direct object. Now this can mean 2 things for us within a sentence. It could be the object of a verb, or it could be the object of a preposition. Either way, it's the object of something, right? Cornelius led the children, he led them into the city, or he led the children near the fountain, right? So the fountain would be the object of the preposition, near. Either way, it's an object. And then, of course, there's the ablative case. Who remembers ablative? What's that?
It's in space.
Right. So the ablative case is used with prepositions. Joe brought up the acronym of SID space, which helps us remember some prepositions. We are going to take this concept of prepositions and extrapolate it a little farther over here. You can do this wherever you need to in your notebook. So the rule of the ablative case involves prepositions. Keep in mind this very important fact about ablative nouns. All ablative nouns must be translated with a preposition. all of them. In some cases, you get lucky, and you have a Latin preposition in a prepositional phrase with an ablative noun. And in that case, your Latin prepositions can be listed the way that Joe said them earlier. We have Sid, space. Who can tell us what some of the preps are in Sid space? You know some of them, Parker?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
Wrote that. I was gonna say what about if wall?
Yeah, we're getting there. Don't worry.
So S is SINE,
Sine?
sine, and then in, then day,
Whoops. Yeah, keep going.
day, and then sub.
Yep.
What is the hard one? Oh, I got it. Index. Pro.
Yeah.
Path. Com. And then X.
Excellent. Someone says if you studied for today. Look at you. All right. Just for kicks, does anyone remember what these prepositions mean?
Oh. Of course.
Bridget, tell us one or two or three of them.
Okay, well, sine is without.
Yep.
In or on. And then about or down.
Excellent. Ben?
Sub is under.
Yep.
And that's what I got.
Okay, that's fine. Any other translations? Yeah. Good. What about ah and ab? Joe?
From.
Good. From, some people think away from, either one. There's another translation of ab that's going to become much more relevant to you and much more necessary for you as we go through the fall and early winter. And that translation is by. So let's keep that one in our list also. And finally, we have pro.
Before.
Yeah. Before as in front of. Not before as in like a time sequence thing. Good. So we're looking at about 60% of the time when you see an ablative noun, it's going to come parceled with a Latin preposition. But what if you see an ablative noun that does not have a Latin preposition with it? Our general rule is that all ablative nouns must be translated with a preposition. So if you don't have one in Latin, you have to come up with one in English. So we're going to make a separate list of English prepositions that you can employ when you don't have a Latin one hanging out for you. So these are implied versus these which are stated. Now, the English prepositions, there's a small handful of them, and I developed a little mnemonic device, an acronym, that's so stupid that it sticks. Parker, what's my little acronym?
IFWAB.
IFWAB. See? It's so weird that it just kind of sticks. Yeah.
Is that with a W or O or
A.
A? Yes.
So our English prepositions to choose from are if, wob. It sounds so dumb. I realize that. I never promise anything brilliant here. But it's just weird enough that it sticks. I mean, look. Everybody who I had last year remembered if, wob. Well, those of you who spoke up at least. Maybe those of you who didn't remember it. But either way, if, wob. What are these English words that are in if, wob? Anyone remember any of them?
With.
Yep, that's definitely one of them.
Is A about?
No, not about.
Wait, no, F is for. Wait, no.
Good.
By.
By. In. Fantastic.
Yeah.
In, from, with, at, and by. Apparently, I was made known that Mr. Couch has his own little mnemonic thing. It's like be with or something, but his doesn't have an A. Gigante for the win, right? So if you have an ablative noun that comes with a Latin preposition, you have it made in the shade. You know what you're dealing with. If you have an ablative noun that does not have a Latin preposition, you must put one of these guys in order to translate it properly. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we are going to sort of go over to the other side of this, and I'm going to prescribe to you generic translations of nouns, so that from now on, when you decline nouns, you don't just give stems and endings. You also give a translation that is particular to the case itself. So, over here, if you have a nominative noun in a sentence, we can summarize it and say that the translation is whatever the noun is. And I put the S in parentheses because you can have a singular or a plural version, right? The cat walks down the street. It's the subject of the sentence. The cats walk down the street. It's a plural. It doesn't change the way that the noun gets used. It's still the noun and then everything else. All right, the genitive generic translation of the nouns. I find that of is better to envision the genitive case than an apostrophe S. Not that you can't ever use an apostrophe S, but especially in our very generic translations, it's hard to figure out where to put the apostrophe in this type of wording. So of fits the bill and is a more succinct way of stating the genitive case. Dative, as you said before, is to or for the noun. Everything all right?
Yes.
Right. The accusative translation means you need to either have a verb or a preposition and then the noun. In other words, you're not using the noun at the beginning of a sentence or a phrase. You have to have the verb or the preposition in front of it or before it. We're going to depart very momentarily from our train of thought here. Here we have some prepositions that take the accusative case. What's the difference between prepositions that take the accusative case and the prepositions that we just charted over there? Let me rephrase. How do you know that a preposition takes the accusative case instead of taking the ablative? Well, yeah, you could tell the ending of the word, but if you have, say, two phrases in one sentence, how do you know which preposition goes with which case ending? It's simpler than you think. Yeah?
The preposition from the space goes with the ablative word, and the other preposition goes with the accusative word.
Absolutely. Right. So the basic rule is that all these sit space things over here, these only belong to ablative. Anything else will take accusative. So if you know sit space inside and out, upside and down, right side and left, then you'll be able to tell the difference between a preposition that takes the accusative case. Alternately, if you learn a new preposition, you might find yourself looking it up in the dictionary. And if the dictionary entry says something like this, well, there's your answer right there, plus accusative. Right? You don't have to do any guesswork. But again, if you know sit space and if you have memorized it, when you meet a new preposition, well, there's no O in sit space, so it's not going to take the ablative. It's going to have to take the accusative. All right, we're hopping back on our train for our last generic translation, which is for the ablative case. For the ablative case, we are going to summarize it as sit space /ifwab the nouns. Which essentially means that whatever you translate with the ablative, you have to know that there's something else attributed to it. It's not just existing unto itself. Okay, we're going to do a sample declension, which will kick off a series of sample declensions. We're going to decline a new word from your chapters 28 to 42 vocab that you finished your picture dictionary for yesterday. The new word that we're going to cover is conwiwa. Anyone remember what conwiwa is? What does it mean? Maybe someone who did the slide. No? It means dinner guest. What declension does it fall into? First. So you have a first declension word that's masculine, and it means dinner guest. Why do you think, and I know we haven't covered this cultural thing yet, why do you think a dinner guest is a masculine noun?
Because the majority of the time, the older people who are allowed into the house were males.
Not really allowed into the house, but you have the right idea. A dinner party was a formal occasion where a man would have his male friends over to, you know, talk business, politics, whatever. Women were not invited. Women were second-class citizens, right? It's the cross we all bear. All right. So let's go ahead and make a chart here. You can make it in your notes. Hopefully your lines will be straighter than mine. You want to leave enough room so that you can have singular forms, plural forms, and then English translations, all in one arrangement here. Okay, it's a first declension noun. I'm sure that you can decline this in your sleep at this point. Fingers crossed. So you don't have to do it at the same pace as I am, but just go ahead and decline it through. The endings themselves are not what we're focusing on. You got those down pat as evident in your quizzes. This is a mandatory macron though down here in ablative singular, just as an FYI. Okay, by now most of you have been able to finish the declension. I'll wait another minute. Make sure you finish writing it. So now we're going to plug in our generic translations for the declined versions of this noun. So the nominative means that if conwiwa or conwiwai appears in the sentence, you would translate it as simply the dinner guests with an S in parentheses. The genitive generic translation of the dinner guests. Dative, to or for the dinner guests. Accusative, verb or preposition, the dinner guests, which means they're not going to appear at the beginning of a translation of a sentence. And then ablative, sid space, if wob, the dinner guests. Okay, so this is going to help to sort of train your eye that when you see a form like conwi warum, you will think of a translation that's similar to of the dinner guests. When you see something like conwi wam, you'll know that there has to be some other stuff first before you translate it, namely a verb or a preposition. All right, what I'm going to ask you to do now is to revisit that slideshow, that picture dictionary that you made with the new vocab words. Each person in each group is going to select one noun, and that one noun that you select, you'll have obviously 4 in a group. You're going to decline it all the way through and provide generic translations. And then the third step is that once you're done with your translation of it, you're going to quiz your group mates. So you are going to ask your group mates, okay, I got conwiwis here. What translation would you give for conwiwis? And your group members will have to tell you that it's 2 or 4 the dinner guests, or sid space ifwab the dinner guests. Okay, just a little friendly, challenge between peers. Try to make sure that you're not overlapping words. So just let your peers know who is taking which word when you take it. Any questions about what you're doing now? Yeah, you need to write down your whole declension, both Latin and English. So decline the Latin forms, give the translations in English. Just like this, but don't do conwiwa.